Chapter 1 is also titled, well, it's titled Don't You Want to Play? And remember, about a board game like Jumanji, and it goes a little bit like this. Wolves were howling on the radio when my dad turned it on. A lady with a soft voice said, "You tuned into K-Wolf. Your tempo of forecast starts with a 20% chance of rain." I was sitting in the back seat of our van and I was drifting off. My eyes heavy, my head heavy, as I listened to this nice lady's voice on the radio, and then my annoying sister to my left. Teasing me like always, I could see Laura out of the corner of my eye, sitting on my left-hand side with her right greasy finger creeping over, and then she would poke me in the side of the neck, whispering, "He's about to fall asleep." I tuned my sister out, and I listened back to the lady on the radio, because her voice sounded a whole lot better than my sister's. When all of a sudden, the van jolted. There was a huge thump under the right side of our van that rocked us to our side. Mom screamed, "Mike, watch out!" Now listen to the words I chose. Eyes slammed open. Dad grabs for the wheel. He jerks it to the right. "Hold on," he calls out. Slamming on the brakes, our van slid to the edge of a trench. "What did you hit?" I asked, searching out the back window. "You should have seen it, Luke," my sister screams out as she crumbles in her seat. She punches me in the shoulder and asks, "Did you see it?" I asked her what. She stutters, "That bug." As my left eye's cocked at her, my right eye caught something heading towards the van. And as my head spun around to the right, I look out the window to the sky. Mom's voice is quivering. Look at the size of them. There's this giant group of insects that are swarming around in the sky, and they begin to change direction and flying right toward us. Dad reaches up and grabs the gear shift. He throws it into reverse, flooring it as rocks start shooting far into the distance. My head then spun around to the left to see if my sister saw them, and this is when I noticed her window is halfway down. "Laura," I demanded, "get your window up." And as the insects approach the van and go from flying to suddenly swarming around us, with one of them landing on the left side of the van, my sister's finger went down on the button and she began stabbing it. Only huge tears began rolling down her face. When we realized, she screams out, "It's not going up, it's stuck." Dad, throwing the van back in drive, hits the accelerator again. This is when I realized the front window locks are on. I yelled, "Dad, release the window locks." He releases it, ordering Laura to get her window up, but it was too late. One of the insects had crawled down, grabbed a hold of the door. Now it was climbing inside the van. Half beetle, half scorpion, 7 to 10 foot long, reaches through, grabs a hold of her leg. Laura sat there yelling, "Get it off of me, get it off of me." Only Luke is sitting in his seat, completely paralyzed in fear. Managing to help her out with one quick shaky swat, he helps knock it off of her, its spindly leg breaking as it tore from her jeans, but then it broke the leg off, which fell to the floorboard below her feet. Laura yells out again and reminds her, "Quit screaming, it's off of you." "Look," she cries out, pointing down. This is when his eyes skip off of her down to the floorboard, where hundreds of little green spiders are now crawling out of the bug's broken off leg. Spiders start jumping down onto the carpet, organizing in rows, and then like an army begin marching up his sister's legs. Laura goes into action. She sat there screaming out as she flicked the spiders off as fast as she could. Luke sat in his seat, completely paralyzed in fear, staring at her, stunned, only then to look in the front seat of Mom and Dad, who are just sitting there staring at each other. Dad whispers, "Don't worry, everything is going to be okay." And he's sitting there thinking about, look in his eyes, things are not going to be okay. He said as he looks back down at his sister, she quickly goes from flicking off the spiders now to slowing them down by pounding them into her jeans with the palms of her hands. And he said as he stares out the window, hundreds of these bugs swarming around the van start slowing down and landing on the van. He said they began attaching themselves to the windows. He said they're mounting on the hood, and he knew the roof because the van is being forced down and now wobbling to a crawl. This is when he looks back up at Mom and Dad. They're still staring at each other. He hears the explosion as he looks outside as the insects begin diving down at the van. Many of them, upon impact, would ricochet off, most of them would explode with green slime splattering down the windows. He said, this is what he looks like over his sister. Spiders begin spinning webs up her shivering legs. He quickly reaches up and he grabs his mom's shoulder. Her hand reaches back and covers his, but she began to squeeze it too tightly. Mom, let go, you're squeezing my hand too tight. When suddenly she jerked him forward, and then her head spun around. He said he looks in her eyes, they're bigger than frisbees. He suddenly goes limp-faced. He gasps and ducks to the left. On her right-hand side, out of the seat, now pops a rotted skeleton. The skeleton spins around and looks into the back seat. Lurching over the seat, it comes right in front of the boy's face. And this is how the chapter ends. He says, and through its blackened eyes, I could smell the stench of its bad breath. As the skull suddenly lowers its head, he said, through its hollowed eyes, it suddenly rasped, hey you, don't you want to play? And then it threw its skull-like head back in a cackle of laughter. That is only chapter 1. Nothing is bad, but it is meant to be a scary book. All right, listen up. We have to stop. I appreciate you guys.